Good afternoon and welcome to the Assembly Committee on Natural Resources. Will the committee secretary please call the roll?
Assembly members Considine. Present. DeLong. Present. Gurr. Here. Hanson. Here. Jackson. Here. Karras. Present. Kasama. Here. LaRue Hatch. Here. Marzola. Present. Watts. Here. And Chair Anderson.
And I am present. So on today's agenda, we have a work session. Just a reminder, first, just a few housekeeping announcements. I'm not going to do all of them. Just please remember to silence your electronic devices while in the committee room. And just a reminder, if we are on our laptops, we're actually looking at some other information related to the bills themselves. Public comment will be taken at the end of the meeting, and each person will be limited to 2 minutes. You may also submit testimony or public comment in writing up to 24 hours after the meeting. Finally, please note that agenda items may be taken in a different order than those listed. 2 or more agenda items may be combined for consideration, or an agenda item may be removed at any time. The work session today will start off with Senate Bill 101. As a reminder, it is not customary for the committee to take testimony or rehear bills during a work session. I may ask the bill sponsor or witness to make clarifications or answer questions during our consideration of a measure. And let's get started with Senate Bill 101. Will our committee policy analysis please go ahead?
Thank you, Chair Anderson. Becky Peratt, Legislative Council Bureau for the record. As a reminder, as nonpartisan legislative staff, I can neither support nor oppose any of the measures that come before this committee. Senate Bill 101 applies certain prohibitions related to wasting certain portions of certain wildlife, specifically to big game mammals, which is defined in the bill and requires the Board of Wildlife Commissioners to adopt related regulations. This bill is sponsored by Senator Daley, and there are no amendments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions regarding SB 101? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to do pass Senate Bill 101.
So moved.
Thank you. I have a motion from Assemblymember Watts, a second from Assemblymember Considine. Is there any discussion on this motion? Assemblymember Jackson.
Chair, I'll be a no with reservations.
Thank you, Assemblymember Jackson. Any other comments?
Yes.
Assemblymember Hanson.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the hearing that we had and the questions we were able to ask. I'm going to be a no and trying to understand how this is going to help. Those who hunt mountain lion and bear, for the most part, either take them out, but now we're going to require them to take them out, and if they dispose of them, we don't eat, for the most part, felines. Then I worry about the impact to our neighborhoods when they end up in a trash bin, left there for a week, and now the neighbors are going to be bothered by what that will mean. But also, if they weren't, we've now created a wanton waste issue for those that might dump it, because they're not going to take them home, they're not going to eat them, they're going to throw them out in the wild. And now, if they do that, they've now set themselves up for 12 demerits and the loss of their hunting license, hunting, fishing, and trapping license for 5 years. So I think it creates more issues than issues it would solve for public relations. For that reason and others, I'm no. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Vice Chair LaRue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair. I echo my colleagues' concerns. I am very concerned about the public health aspect of this, we will now be encouraging people to either eat meat that has dangerous parasites that can infect people or throw it away. And we can hope that it will be donated, but I just don't have a whole lot of belief that it will be donated, and so I will also be a no.
Thank you. Any further comments? Thank you so much. We will have, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
If you would please raise your hand so I can mark that. Assemblymember DeLong, Assemblymember Hanson, Assemblymember Jackson, Vice Chair LaRue Hatch, and Assemblymember Marzola. Thank you. The motion has passed. I will ask Assemblymember Watts to do the floor statement. Sure. Thank you. All right, let's move on to the next bill, which I believe is Senate Bill 235.
Senate Bill 235 is sponsored by Senator Hansen. The bill authorizes, under certain circumstances, the non-commercial gathering of shed antlers or a skull or head with or without antlers attached or bones without a tag, and clarifies that the existing statutory requirement for the Board of Wildlife Commissioners to adopt regulations related to the gathering of shed antlers only applies to gathering for commercial purposes. There is an amendment to this measure which removes the language in Section 4 of the bill related to the requirement for the commission to adopt regulations for the gathering of shed antlers only for commercial purposes, thereby restoring the language of the current statute. Please note that the language inserting the word or concept of an incidental gathering is being removed and is not being considered. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I will explain where exactly the incidental discussion is coming from. Earlier today, there was a discussion between myself and legal counsel regarding the idea of the incidental. How exactly are you able to prove that through the courts? And so that was I've made the decision. I'm sorry, Senator, I hope it's okay, to remove that based upon that issue. And I also spoke with the individual who had expressed those concerns. However, if I see a question about that, Assemblymember Watts beforehand.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the senator's attempts to address some of the issues that came up in the hearing. I feel comfortable with what is now before us, and so I agree that that piece that was proposed previously is no longer necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. And then also, there's a secondary issue. I believe everybody should have in front of them a proposed amendment coming from the Nevada Department of Wildlife that is in front of you at this time. I believe I've got a question at this time from Assemblymember Hansen. Assemblymember Hansen?
Thank you, Chair. I think there's some confusion that's been created in this last moment. Is it okay to have the sponsor or maybe those?
I was planning on doing
Oh,
that,
okay, great.
Assemblymember.
I just want to make sure if we could ask questions of those that are either affected in a pro or con way on the amendment, and maybe those who might have proposed.
Thank you, and thank you for those questions. That was the plan. Assemblymember DeLong, you also have a question before I call people up?
I also have questions on this amendment, and so I don't know whether that's someone that you're calling up or whether it's someone in the committee, so.
Thank you so much for asking that question. I will be asking Mr. Janae to come forward from the department to be able to possibly discuss his amendment first, and then also I'll be asking Senator Hansen to come up to do the same. And we are able to ask questions if necessary. Would you like to come up to be able to explain the proposed amendment that I believe that we had this morning? If you could please explain that to us. And does everybody have a copy of it on the committee? That's correct. It's the one pager. There's no name on it, I know. But the other one, I believe, is currently in our packet. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. For the record, Alan Janae, Director, Nevada Department of Wildlife. So what we submitted as a proposed amendment is the one where you see we were playing off of a proposed amendment by Senator Hansen where it kept Section 3, subsection 4. We made a small edit in there to shed antlers to keep that as the deadhead portion, and then asked for Section 4 to be kept but modified with Section 4, subsection 1 of 503655 to be the gathering of shed antlers and skulls or heads with or without antlers or horns detached, and then striking the commercial purposes sentence. The reasoning behind this is we, as expressed in the previous hearing, is we do support trying to get some regulation around the deadheads out on the hills. One of the things that we see within this is that we do currently, through the commission, have regulations as far as seasons for antlers. And this would create a possible loophole where somebody could be out on the hill collecting a deadhead or using that as the explanation for why they would be out on the hillside during shed antler closure. So this was a proposed amendment, again, to take it to the commission to allow them to hear from the impacted sportsmen and people that do this work to help, create regulation should it need it, but also to make it fit within the antler season.
Thank you so much. Are there questions for Mr. Janae? Assemblymember DeLong.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being willing to entertain some questions. So in Section 3, subsection 4, you have stricken shed antlers. And the way I'm looking at that, you're basically saying if there's an antler on the ground, you can't pick it up under this section. Is that correct?
So, again, this was about, the way we considered this was as, for the record, sorry, Alan Janae. As we considered this section, this was the section that we were using for the consideration of the deadheads. And so that was why we had taken that out. It much more was playing to that piece of the deadheads.
Yes, Chair, thank you. I'm still trying to digest these deadheads, so. I think I understand where you're coming from. So then in Section 4, sorry, let me back up. So in Section 3, subsection 4, we're basically saying you can go out and you can collect skulls or heads with or without antlers or horns without a tag. So why then in Section 4 do you need to create a set of regulations if you don't need a tag to go get them?
Thank you for the question. And I understand, for the record, Alan Janae, and I understand many members aren't involved in this, but there are people that absolutely live and die by their opportunities to collect shed antlers. And so back in 2011, it was brought to legislature, passed NRS to actually create or pass to the commission, the Nevada Board of Wildlife Commission, that they must develop language, which is this subsection 4, around the gathering of sheds at the time. As I've expressed, this piece about picking up deadheads also falls within, there are season restrictions in certain counties where you can only pick up shed antlers during certain months in certain counties. So the rest of the state you cannot, or you can.
Another follow-up, please. Thank you. So I understand your issue with the shed antlers. And people live and die and by that. But you've included skulls and heads with or without antlers or horns in subsection 4. And I'm wondering why, for those items, do you feel you need regulations since you're in section 3, subsection 4, you've said no tags required to gather those items.
Thank you for the record. And so, Alan Janae,
And let me
for the
just,
record.
in your responses, you're mixing shed antlers and then deadheads in your justifications. To me, those are two separate things, and I understand the antler side, and so if you could.
Absolutely, as I
you.
explained earlier, is that this deadhead component singularly and of itself would provide the opportunity for somebody to be on a winter range that is closed for shed antler pickup, but yet to be out there looking for a deadhead or using the excuse of looking for a deadhead on a closed, in a closed county during a closed period, to be using the excuse of looking for a deadhead. Because often on those winter ranges, those are typically those times when you find animals are at their lowest fat reserves, living in their toughest conditions, and that is typically when you see an animal perish naturally is during those winter months.
One more bite, Chair?
Ask others
That's
if
fine.
they've got questions,
Thank you.
because you might not be the only one that has questions regarding this. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, you'd get one more. I get it.
Thank you. The way you responded to these counties that have these time restrictions is, there are two things that come out of what you've said. One is that
And Assemblymember DeLong, you really need to get to the point. Thank
you're
you.
presuming someone's guilty by being out there. And I'll just leave it at that.
Again, for the record, Alan Janae, and so actually, we're not trying to presume anything. We're just trying to, as was expressed by the sportsmen, or many of the sportsmen when they asked for this regulation, was trying to protect those animals on those winter range during those most sensitive periods when influence and possibly pushing them could just burn more fat reserves off of what little they have remaining going through that winter period. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And thank you, Assemblymember DeLong, for the questions. That brought up another one. Assemblymember Karas.
Thank you, Chair. There's a question here. I'm trying to figure out how to blend the two of these. What I don't like is that I'm going to assume that the one that says Senator Hansen is yours, right? And this is yours. Okay. In Senator Hansen's, he includes shed antlers without requiring a tag, but you do not. Why in 50 words or less?
Mark it on the 50 words. For the record, Alan Janae. I would say the way that we considered this is that there is already regulation on shed antlers in NAC. And so that was the way we were contemplating it. That's my rough explanation.
Isn't that the purpose of this bill, though, is to make it where you pick up shed antlers and you don't get a fine? Not for commercial purposes, just because you're out there and you see them.
Thank you for the record, Alan Janae for the record. So currently, there is no distinction between commercial purposes and non-commercial purposes. There's no such thing. There is solely a shed season developed by the Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners through Nevada Administrative Code that says in those certain counties, there is a seasonal closure and you're not allowed to pick up antlers during that period. So the commercial, non-commercial, non-existent. So, and there is already NAC on the collection of shed antlers with that seasonal restriction. And that's why we considered this as the piece that was dealing towards the deadhead component.
And Assemblymember Gurr.
I'll try and make this short. To me, and this is gonna be in the form of a question, it looks to me like you're trying to get these state mandated issues over to the real estate commission, the wildlife commission, to actually adopt real regulations, not set it in state law. Is that an assumption on my part, or is that where it's headed?
Thank you for the record, Alan Janae. And so that is part of the understanding that these are very complex issues and these are very things that the legislature is not typically used to dealing with. Is we have typically found in the Department of Wildlife in these complex issues that deal with this type of matter is to get it in front of the Board of Wildlife Commissioners, who is a much more informed body, but also has a public process that brings in those people that are often trying to do these types of activities to contemplate and form regulation, but also should any changes be necessary, it doesn't involve coming back to the legislature to try to deal with them through state NRS.
Thank you. Assemblymember Hansen.
Thank you, Chair. So obviously there's confusion on this issue. I serve on Legislative Commission, and maybe you could help me go back and remember. It seemed like we were trying to deal with this in regulation, and it didn't get dealt with because the LegCom didn't address it, sent it back. But then we saw it in the booklet that we saw in the hearing, but we had never dealt with that regulation. So it is obvious there's a lot of confusion now with this last minute amendment. And I guess I'm trying to understand, what is it we're missing that we're not able to straighten out, either at LegCom or here?
So thank you for the question, Alan Janae, for the record. So actually, if you go back and you actually look what was proposed to LegCom, it had very little to do with any of the subject matter that's being discussed here. When you look back at that record of that draft that we took LCB file, but it was Commission General Regulation 475, when you look back at that, the only piece that was removed was an hourly restriction. In the original proposed language, it was unless between the hours of 10 a.m. to sunset during the period of April 1 to May 31. So that was the only thing that LegCom rejected, and so that's why the regulation looks the way it does, which is now it just says a person shall not take or gather shed antlers form on any public land located in Elko, Eureka, Lander County, Nye, White Pine counties at any time between January 1 and April 30th. And then that was amended in 2021. So
Thank you. I feel like we're getting into a different world again of rehearing the bill.
Yep.
I appreciate all the information, and I appreciate the questions as well, but we're rehearing the bill with the last minute amendment. So if there is anybody who would like, if there are any more comments, not questions, would anybody like to make any? Assemblymember Hanson.
Would it be proper if we were to ask Senator Hansen to come to the table and see if he accepts this amendment?
Thank you, that was, yeah, that's okay though, but thank you very much for doing so. Senator Hansen, would you like to come up and make a comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The amendment that you have in front of you that's on my letterhead is the one I met with all of you and went over, okay? And I put in for incidental purposes because Assemblyman Watts had expressed a concern about that. So that's why that's in there. As far as the intent of the bill, the biggest issue here is, and it was very interesting what he just said, essentially, you're making everybody in the state of Nevada guilty if they pick up a deadhead currently, even in the counties where it's not regulated at all. Secondly, in the counties where antlers are regulated, and if you'll notice in my amendment, if you actually read the last sentence, this is the 20, and I'm probably the only person around that was there in 2011, and you'll notice in section 4, it's very clear. The regulations are for taking of shed antlers, nothing about deadheads, and then it says, as used in this section, this is the current existing law, shed antlers means antlers which have been naturally shed by any big game animal in the state. So all we had delegated to the Department of Wildlife and the Wildlife Commission was the ability to regulate shed antlers, nothing about deadheads, okay? Totally separate issues. So then, in this bill, the reason I put in incidental is one of the things I wanted to make sure, and this is very important, I don't want people being criminalized when they simply are picking up an antler when they're on a hike or something like that. And that's what, if you just heard what Mr. Janae said, that their theory is, rather than find people that are actually breaking the law, let's just make everybody guilty so nobody can pick up an antler ever. And that's what he just said. He said, well, if you guys allow incidental take, that would
Thank you,
indicate
Senator.
that would indicate that.
Do you accept the amendment or
Okay,
not?
well, you know, just so you know, I regard the Department of Wildlife, I didn't even know about this amendment. It literally, until I met, it had never been shown to me. And when I found out about it, I said, wait a minute, this is not a friendly amendment, and this changes dramatically the intent of the bill that I had expressed and met with all of you about. So,
I would interpret that to mean that you do not accept the amendment. Is that what I understand?
well, I'd prefer you go with the amendment that I had already shown to all the members of the committee.
So
Thank
it
you, Madam
appears
Chair.
that that would be no, you do not accept it.
I prefer, yes, correct. I would not
Thank
accept it.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I will entertain a motion at this time. If there's anybody that would like to do so.
I move that we amend with Senator Hansen's submitted amendment and pass SB 235.
I second.
Thank you. What else can go wrong? So hopefully it'll be back on soon. We will need to recess momentarily. All right, let's come on back up. Let's see if we will exit out of recess. Yes. All right, and I thank you so much for the reminder about the floor statement. The floor statement for Assembly Bill 235 will be, let's go with Assemblymember Hansen. Keep it in the family. All right, let's move on to Senate Bill 276.
Senate Bill 276 establishes provisions requiring certain entities to notify Nevada's Division of Environmental Protection of incidents resulting in the discharge of sewage, industrial waste, or any other unauthorized discharge into the waters of the state and other related provisions. This bill is sponsored by Senator Hansen, and there are no amendments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions on SB 276? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. Wow. Okay. Getting it, stop. All right, I have a motion from Assemblymember DeLong, a second from Assemblymember Karas. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion's passed unanimously, and I will give the floor statement to, let's go with Assemblymember DeLong. Thank you. All right, and I do believe we are on our last item of the day, which is public comment. If you'd like to make public comment here in Carson City, come on up to the table. Seeing none. Anybody in Las Vegas? Seeing none. AVH.
Chair, the lines are open and working. We have no callers to give public comment at this time.
Thank you so much. That concludes our meeting for today. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.